Hey guys, Matty P here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to part 3 of this chat with my mum. Final part in part 3, all going to be about after secondary school. So I finished all my education. Now I'm going out into the big wide world, trying to find a job, make some money for myself and get some independence. So we talk all about how I do that and mixing in with other people, making some new friendships, some new connections, and making a name for myself, putting myself out there. And so we'll talk all about that and talk about some things as well which you may not think we'd have to do now that I'm an adult, but even to this day I'm having to still manage certain parts of my condition, and my mum's having to double check with how I'm getting on and remind me of the correct way to do things and to be careful with X, Y, and Z. So let's take a look, see how the chat goes. Hope you learn something from it. Okay, Mum, part 3 now. Mm-hmm. Welcome back. Hope you're well.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So finishing part 2, came to all the way up to senior school and what I'd achieved there. And with all people, but especially with autistic people, really important with school because that gives you structure and routine throughout the week, and you know what you're doing, what's expected of you. So almost suddenly then the school's not taken away from you, but it finishes. You come to the end of your education unless you go on to further education. So can we touch base with how losing that structure affected me?
Well, I think you learned all you needed to learn in your school, and we realised that college really wasn't any much beneficial for you, really. You were at a bit of a loose end, and I was lucky enough to work in a supermarket, and I got you an interview. And you had a job, and that turned out to be very, very well, because you were sitting behind a computer. Again, that's black and white and structure. And while you're serving the customers their food, you're also now practicing the skills that you learned. Or you're talking to them, or you're having a little joke, and you're practicing your banter. Sometimes that would go wrong. The joke didn't sit well with the customers you tried to make a joke of, and you thought, I won't do that again. Let's see how I can improve my banter, which you did. And again, like everything else, that took time. But once you understood, again, the social rules and the social acceptable jokes and banter that you shared with your customers, you settled in very well into your job, because once again, you knew what was expected of you, and it was structure, where you had your work, and then you had your coffee breaks and your tea breaks, and you had your day laid out for you. So that was you thrived very well.
Yeah, definitely. What helped me as well, there were a few people who were, when I started, they'd already been working there for a while, and I managed to build up a connection with a couple of the other people that were working there and build up a friendship with them, so that really helped as well.
Yeah, it did, because they at this point you weren't ready to come out into the wild world to say you were on the spectrum. That takes a long time for anybody, but I had a quiet word with them, and they understood what made you tick. I think they more or less took you under your wing, because when you first went to Tesco, especially in the canteen on the tea breaks, you wouldn't talk to anybody. You would have you take a newspaper with you, and you read the paper, have your cup of coffee, time to break, then you go, and then slowly we would say, "Come over here, Matt, and have a chat to us." And slowly you did, and you enjoyed the conversation, and you put your 2 pennies worth in, And on the shop floor as well, you started to talk to the staff a lot more. Your confidence bloomed a little bit more, and you realised that it's not a scary world out in employment. Once you know the rules, you're perfectly okay. And one funny part was one of the team leaders, you were talking so much to a member of staff, she nearly told you off. And she said, I can't, because we've all encouraged Matthew to talk to the staff. Now he's talking too much, but I can't tell him off. Not this time. And again, that was time. And credit to you is what you've learned. You had the courage to go out there and experiment. Because life is an experiment. And sometimes you get things wrong. But that's how you learn.
Yeah. And with whilst I was in that job as well, like you say, talking to the customers and learning techniques with how to start the conversation with the customers, because when this could be anyone, but especially when you're autistic, it can be challenging and a bit scary to try and start a conversation with a customer when you don't know anything about them.
That was easy, really, because part of the company's policy was you always started off to greet your customer. Good morning, how are you? Would you need help packing? And that then started the ball rolling conversation. They would answer you back, and then you started your conversation and it snowballed into something else. Or sometimes you would see a customer where didn't really want to engage in conversation. They just wanted their food delivered to them, pay, and be on your way. And that was a very important thing that you learned straight from your speech therapy, is learn how to read the person and the situation. You would read, well, that customer didn't want to have a full-blown conversation. That's fine. Or they wanted to just be on their way. So all that you learned in your speech therapy in the Lindens about reading faces and reading people, you are still carrying on.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the job I'm doing now in a call centre, I'm still speaking to, because you'll get loads of people, whole spectrum of people. From one end, people like me who are not quite as natural with the conversation, and then other people like one of my brothers who's got the gift of the gab, can talk to anyone. Even to this day, I'm talking to people with that kind of personality to ask them, how do you talk to your customers? How are you able to be so free flowing? So even to this day, I'm still learning.
And that I think that's a gift. You're born with that, and when you go to the gift of the gab and you can sell sand to the Arabs, which your brother can, that can't be learned. It's a gift, but you can try your best to learn how to start conversations and to try and get the conversation flowing. But when you start one conversation, 5 minutes later, you're talking about something totally different, where that's flown to a different topic, and that is that's very hard for you to do, but you have to learn to do that, and it is scary.
Yeah, and so even to this day, when I'm socialising, whether that's with customers over the phone or if I'm out and about with a social group or going for a hike up a mountain or something, to the onlooker, it'll just look like I'm talking to someone like anyone else would. But what they don't realise is, in my head, it's like a computer working in the background constantly, thinking about what's the next topic I should be talking about, trying to read the facial expression and how the person's reacting, which I've had to learn over many years, and doing all that, it's so I'm having to try and do 3-4 things at once in my mind whilst I'm talking to the person, which anyone else wouldn't realise, and I'm still having to do that to this day.
And that is exhausting. And that's why sometimes people on the spectrum can come across as slightly robotic. But you've done really well in analysing the facial expressions and what we all taught you at home and in and the Lindens. And even now, the age you are now, family, they accept that when you go to gatherings, you like to stay for about an hour or thereabouts, have a chat, catch up, and then you say to them, "Well, I have to take my goodbyes now, because after what you've explained just now, you're exhausted."
Yeah.
And that's what we taught you, especially when you were younger and we had visitors. I would say to you, come down and have some family time, talk to our visitors, engage in conversation, even just for 10 minutes, and then retire back to your bedroom. And that's how you learned, just those little steps. And you are still doing that, but to a bigger scale, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And with a lot more being known about autism now, and programs and documentaries about the subject, and both of us were still learning about the condition. And one thing we recently learned about is autistic burnout, which we touched on there, having to take a break after social settings. And otherwise, if we don't give ourselves time to ourselves to charge the batteries, we can become exhausted and end up not taking the opportunity to engage socially, because we're so mentally exhausted.
Like, for instance, you don't do well in a party setting because of the loud music and the lights and the too many people. You do well in, say, like a small setting of restaurant, where there's like a group of 4 or 6, where you can have a meaningful conversation. You don't do small talk. You like, as I say, a meaningful conversation which you understand.
Yeah.
And that's more your forte.
Yeah. Yeah, and something else which I'm still learning to this day, with when socializing is all about, because normally for people on the spectrum or with autism, we take everything literally, and when we have conversations, we think there's just a normal conversation where you ask questions or make statements, and there's not much more to it than that. Whereas I've learned over the years, there's other ways of communicating, especially with groups of friends, where you have a joke with each other, have a bit of banter, where you say things out of jest, which at a younger age I might have taken offence to, but I've learned that it's all a bit of a laugh, and it's just a way of building rapport with your friends.
Yes, that's right. And another part of jokes is sarcasm. Now, sometimes in the past, you had a sarcastic joke to a person, but it went completely wrong. And you had to reevaluate what you said and readjust that sarcastic joke. And that's, again, that's all part of the learning process. I think, Matthew, that any working role that you have through your life will always need to have plenty of structure in your life, knowing what is expected of you, and your breaks on time, and going to work and finishing on time. And that's what Professor Fraser first said all those years and years ago, that if you find your working environment in those terms, you would do really, really well, and you would have lots of colleagues to cultivate friendships with and to bounce off, and that's happened. But it's been a long road.
Yep.
Lots of pitfalls and mistakes, but that's how we all learn, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we grow up, we all have friendships which some of which can stay with us throughout our lives, some which can peter out. And over the years, I've had some friends who I'm no longer in contact with, or we've worked at the same company, now we no longer work together. And because it can be hard or harder for people on the spectrum to make friends, that can have a real impact if they lose connection with the people that they've taken a long time to become friends with. So I've had to learn how to make loads of friends with without making them my best friend. Have lots of friends that I can go to, so I don't put all my energy into one person, and when they're gone, I've got nothing.
That's quite correct. I think that's for everybody. It's good. But I think what I must stress as well, we were both stressed really, is that you were very lucky. Your spectrum has always been very, very mild. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I think you were always, even as a child, you were always on about number 2 or about 2.5.
Yeah.
So and now you are, I think 1%. So you've been really, really lucky because the spectrum is very wide.
Yeah.
But the downside to that as well, I think, because you are borderline, you've had to work harder to integrate into society because, again, Professor Fraser said, eventually, where you are now, you will come along really, really well. But to the onlooker, they would say, he's a nice person, but I can't quite put my finger on what is different about him. And that's where you are now. So you've worked really, really hard and you've come such a long way from going to your special school, not understanding the language spoken to you, to where you are now, which is really good.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is common with people with autism, but as we both know, I felt, looking back, as with a lot of things, in retrospect, look back and think, I'm not sure what I was worried about, but for a long time after school, I kept my autism hidden because I thought I had to try and pretend to be a normal person, because if they, in my head, if they knew I was autistic, that would put me at a disadvantage and make me less favourable. But looking back now, because I'm more open about my autism and how it affects me and how people can support me, that means I can be more normal now, as backwards as that sounds. I don't know if that's the same for everyone on the spectrum though.
But aren't we all pretending to be normal?
Yeah.
Because I don't know of a normal person, do you?
No.
So we are all pretending to be normal out in that big bad world.
And last thing we wanted to touch on, which is another big part of autism, which I'm going to have to manage and keep on top of for the rest of my life, is obsessions and having a tendency to become obsessive about something, especially if I really enjoy it. And you've growing up, you've seen that firsthand with me whenever I've found something I like, and you've had to get me to pace myself.
There's a fine difference between really, really enjoying something and an obsession where it could take over your life. Even from a small child, I had to say, well, Matthew, this is not real life. This is a toy, or this is just a story. And sometimes I would have had to have taken that thing away, and to get you to try something else, or learn about a new topic. So that wasn't part of your whole life. And you progressed from toys and books. Now into adulthood, golf, where I had to give you good talking to and say, well, Matthew, this is an obsession now. Golf should be a hobby where you go out and you enjoy yourself. Not for you to win constantly all the time and beat yourself up and say, I could have done better, I could have done better. And I had to ask you to put your golf clubs away, read something or watch something on television, and then decide to go and give yourself a good talking to, and then go back to golf. Just have a good time hitting the ball from place to place and not building up a score sheet, so you're just enjoying the environment around you and the game, and that's one thing. Sport, I hate sport, and I got to say as well, sometimes sport is just a hobby. It's not the be all and end all. You haven't got to take it so seriously. And why did he do that? And why didn't he do that? And offside, or was that a male thing?
It's more. I'd say it's more of a male trait where maybe something to do with males having their territory and being trying to be really masculine, almost to the point of toxic masculinity.
All right. And like, for instance, if you have even now, if you have a new hobby, it's you got to give it your absolute 100% all, and it's life and death. But it's just a hobby, and I have to remind you constantly, what you got at the moment, it's very nice, but it's just a hobby. It's not work. It doesn't pay your bills. It doesn't put food on the table. It's just a hobby. And that's obsession that I've always had to keep on top. And even now, as an adult, I have to remind you that this is just a hobby. It is not an obsession. And at the moment, you're carrying on. If it's going to be, I was going to pull you back.
Yeah.
And then, when you've been pulled back, you realise, yeah, I was getting a bit obsessive then, wasn't I? And Mum was always right.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. With the golf, at one point I was playing 3-4 times a week, and I was trying to. We all want to get our handicap down as golfers, but I was taking that to the extreme. And thankfully, I've come full circle now, where I'm not really bothered what my handicap is, and stopped playing now for when we're filming this now, coming into the winter. Probably won't play again till the spring. Give myself a break, and I can go back with a fresh start. Then, new hope and optimism of how I can enjoy it without getting to the point of being obsessive and doing as good as I can, hoping that I'll get something back from it.
But sometimes your obsessions will be a tool for you in a way, because you went to a private school. Per term, part of your curriculum was you had to do a presentation, and with children and young people, it's what their interests are. And I remember one of your talks, your presentation was all about Queen and Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
And everybody, all the teachers knew everything about Queen, because that was your obsession, and so that was good. That you could manifest that into the curriculum of the presentation you were required to give.
Yeah, so you could say then, if it's used correctly, that could be a superpower for autism.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. It was good to, as you say, it's important to cover that, and hopefully, if someone's watching that's caring for an autistic child, they'll know, have a better idea how to manage this if they notice their their child is putting everything into one thing, and like you say, it's life and death.
And that obsession of a particular thing as well could be a good tool as well for starting off a conversation with somebody you don't know. That you could say, I've come across this particular topic, I'm really interested. Do you like this? And that could carry on a conversation. So it's all beneficial.
Yeah.
But as I say, it's good as long as you keep a handle on the obsessions.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key thing. If don't get to the point where rather than you controlling it, it's controlling you. Okay, I think that's that brings us to the end of our chat here about my upbringing. So thanks again. Thanks again for your time. Really good to get your insight as a parent. I'm sure there'll be people watching who will have a great benefit of watching, hopefully. So if it helps one person, we've done our job here.
I hope so, because it's been a long road, but it's been a really good road. I've learned a lot. It's made me a better person knowing you. I am more any disability now. I see the person. I don't see the disability, and I am much more calmer, I suppose, and not a lot gets to me, because boy, just did a lot of things get to you when I was bringing you up, and I just take things like now with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, perfect. We'll leave it there, and great to get your insight, and who knows, in the future we might have another chat if there's a demand for more feedback from people watching.
Yes, because I've got loads more experience to pass on to if anybody wants to. What I've learned, just from my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for taking the time, and we'll catch up soon.
It's been good. Been a good journey. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. So there you go. That's a 3-part chat with my mum, all done and dusted. So all the way from age 2.5, where parents started to notice something different about me compared to my 2 brothers, all the way through to present day in adulthood, where what makes me tick is different to the neurotypical person, and still trying to fit in with the world, and like everyone, trying to be normal, whatever that is. Thankfully now I'm a lot more open with my autism, and where I work, they're really championing diversity and inclusion, including with neurodivergent people. So I'm really glad they're doing that, and I'm doing my bit to help champion that. So that's really exciting at the moment. Make the workplace as comfortable and inclusive for everyone, whether you're neurotypical or you got autism, ADHD, dyslexia, whatever it may be. So really positive there. We're going in the right direction. Still got a long way to go, of course. If you've enjoyed this chat with my mum and you've benefited from it, give it a thumbs up, like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll catch you on the next video, and I'll see you there.